Thank you for tuning in to Midwest Tuckpointing here on YouTube. This is the first ever Midwest Tuckpointing video of many to come in the future, but we really want to branch out and, show not only services we offer, but also give recommendations and tools and methods to possibly do this yourself. This is a very common service or repair that is needed on many brick and stone homes around the country or around the world for that matter. And you can do it on block as well. Nearly every house is on a concrete foundation or a block foundation. So tuck pointing, what we're going to do here in this video is really break it down to the basics and just kind of show how I would go about tuck pointing this particular project. This is a fairly small project. It's a front stoop. You got concrete on top and you've got brick around the perimeter. It has eroded away due to weather, water, it's just being old. And a lot of people don't know this, but mortar is designed to erode away. So it's not uncommon to need tuck pointing. Every masonry structure at some point in its life will need tuck pointed because mortar is softer than its counterpart, brick, block, or stone. If it was the opposite, the mortar would be too strong for, say, the brick and it would crack your brick. So mortar is actually slightly softer than whatever material it's being built with, and it's designed to kind of turn to a powder and erode away. Hopefully it's 50, 60, 70 years. It's decades, but it is designed to go away, and you will need tuck pointing at some point. So jumping into tuck pointing itself, how you would go about tuck pointing this particular project, you're going to start with removing the old mortar, and the easiest and the most efficient way to remove old mortar from brick is an angle grinder with a diamond blade. And then attached to your angle grinder, you're going to want to have a HEPA vacuum. That's actually OSHA rules. You're going to want a dust extractor, a HEPA dust extractor connected to your angle grinder, and it keeps the silica dust down. This is not only the rules, but it keeps your job site clean and it keeps you from standing in a cloud of dust while you're removing old mortar. As far as a HEPA dust extractor goes, there is multiple different brands and styles. The one that I'm using in this particular project, it's a smaller project, so I was able to use my battery powered vacuum, and you can tell that it doesn't capture all the dust. It does a good job, but it's not going to 100% no dust goes into the air. So you will want a respirator, and how you also hold the angle grinder, and you can kind of experiment with it, but there's ways where the vacuum will be able to extract more dust. I will also add that a very good item to add to really any of your setups, whether you're using shop vac or a Hilti HEPA vacuum or a Metabo, a Makita, Milwaukee, DeWalt, any of them, is to hook up a dust deputy. And a dust deputy is a bucket with a cyclone on top of it. So you have your vacuum connected to the dust deputy and then a hose running to your angle grinder. And what that does is the dust will collect in the cyclone into the bucket before it reaches the vacuum. So it saves your filters, it saves the life of your vacuum, and it's a lot easier to dump out a bucket of dust than to clean filters and clean your vacuum. Your vacuum will still get dust in it, but it's one extra layer, and it helps gather dust more than without, for sure. So jumping into this, how you're going to go about it is you've got to get all the old mortar removed, and you're just going to, little by little, you're going to take an angle grinder and you're going to grind out all the mortar joints. You may run into caulking, what should be mortar, but somebody has put caulking in it at some point. This is quite a bit harder to get out of brick than mortar, obviously, because if you took an angle grinder to caulking, it essentially melts it and like throws it everywhere, and it makes a mess. So you don't want to use an angle grinder on caulking. What you want to use is an oscillating tool with a tip that is meant for removing a soft glue. I will post links in the description to products that I use most often for this type of work. So you'll see me here, we're going through, we remove all the mortar, and once you've done that, you've essentially prepped the surface. So your next step is to wet it all down. This does two things. It pre-wets the wall for your new mortar, and it also cleans any of the dust away from what you were doing when you were grinding. You don't want dust on the wall because mortar doesn't stick to dust. So you want a nice clean surface before you tuck point or repoint and you install new mortar. Secondly, you want to pre-wet any wall that you're going to be tuck pointing because masonry is a porous surface. So you got brick, block, or stone. They suck in moisture. So if you had a dry wall and it was dry as can be, and you installed new mortar into that dry wall is going to extract the moisture from your new mortar and it's not going to cure properly. So a good damp pre-wet wall is what you want before you put any new mortar in, and that'll allow your new mortar to cure properly. So you've gone through, you've removed the old mortar with an angle grinder, you've removed any caulking or any other debris that may be in your way, you have cleaned the wall, you've wet it down, you've washed it down, and now it's time to mix up mortar. You can mix up mortar in a bucket. It depends how big of a project you have. You know, if it's a very large project, you may need an actual mortar mixer. If it's nice and small like this, a 5-gallon bucket is no problem. So you're going to mix up your mortar, and how you mix up mortar is you want to mix it and then you want to let it sit for 3 to 5 minutes and then remix it because it's going to have an initial setup period. And if you mix it and install it right away, it's not going to cure properly. So not only do you want to pre-wet the wall before you do anything, you want to mix the mortar. So once you have your batch of mortar mixed up, the next step is to get it in the wall. And the fastest, most efficient way that I've done this and I've learned how to do it is a grout bag. And there's different styles of grout bags. They have plastic ones. There's different styles of everything. You kind of have to experiment with what you like. I will link in the description what we use the most often. So you'll mix it up, let it sit for a couple minutes, remix it, then you're going to put it in your grout bag and you're going to start filling in all the mortar joints. And you're not worrying about a finished look right now. We are just essentially getting the mortar in the wall and get it all filled in. And depending on how large of a project you have, it should be about perfectly set up by the time you get all done. Following installing the mortar, it's now all been grout bagged in. What you're going to do is you're going to take a mortar tool, a striker, and you're going to strike all the mortar joints. And still, this is not going to be a finished look quite yet, so don't get discouraged if it's not looking what you think it should look like. Nice and slow, trust the process. We're going to install it, we're going to strike it, and then once you've done that, you're going to go through with a masonry brush and you're going to brush everything. And then I like to go through it one more time with the striker just to give it a nice finished look. But it all depends on the mortar look you're going for. If you're trying to match a specific mortar texture that's on the house, or if you are working on the house and you have to blend it into areas around it, it totally depends on your specific project. But that's really all there is to it. You have to remove the old mortar. We got to install it, and then we're going to strike it all. And now you've got a finished tuck pointing project, and all you have left to do is to let this sit and cure, and then we will come back the next day after it's hardened up, it's cured, and we will clean it. This is a really big step when it comes to tuck pointing because any masonry, it can be very dirty. It's almost like tile. It's got like a haze to it. It just looks new and it looks dusty and dirty. So when I clean mortar, they have different products. There's Sure Clean, and even cheaper, even more available. You can go to a hardware store and you can get muriatic acid. Muriatic acid, it says right on the bottle, it etches concrete. You don't want it on your skin. You don't want to be breathing it in, and you don't want it on anything that you don't want it on. So be careful when you're using it, but you want to dilute it. So if we're going to clean this brick, we're going to take a 5 gallon pail. We're going to put some water in it, basically half and half, depending on how fragile, or maybe you're working with historic masonry and you have a lot more delicate surface that you don't want to ruin. You're gonna go more water than muriatic acid. But essentially, all this is diluted a diluted product such as muriatic acid or SureClean with water and a brush. And then you're gonna, whatever surface you're cleaning, you want to hose it down. So you want to keep the area wet. Power washer is best, but a garden hose is good. You want good running water. Hose down your surface, and then you're just going to start scrubbing with the muriatic acid, and then you're going to rinse it all down, and that is a completed tuck pointing project. So you've removed the old mortar, you've prepped the surface for the new mortar, making sure there's no dust and everything will adhere properly. Then you let it cure, and then you clean it the next day. And then an optional step is you can apply masonry sealer or anything of your choice, or you can leave it exactly how it is. It usually depends if it's an area prone to water around a gutter or something. So, but with that being said, I don't want this video to go too long. This is the very first ever Midwest tuck pointing video, and we will be making more in the future of many styles of projects. We get into all sorts of different jobs when we are doing masonry restoration. Brick mailbox gets backed over, a block home foundation has cracked or completely eroded away. It's every job is different, and that's kind of the purpose of this channel, is to not only show the service that we offer, but to help others out there, because masonry restoration is a very needed service and it's very common. And if a homeowner can make a simple repair out there for yourself, then it might save you some money and it might save you some time. And we hope we can help you out with that. So with that, I thank you for tuning in to Midwest Tuck Pointing. And if this video helped you out, please consider giving it a like. And if you want to stay tuned for more content, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, you can check us out at MidwestTuckpointing.com. You can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, or you can comment below. Otherwise, we will catch you in the next video, and thank you for tuning in. Take care.